Here are 10 tips for using Uber, Lyft, or any other ride-sharing service when you're blind or visually impaired. Hi everyone, it's Carrie from Live Accessible. Transportation is always a big issue for people who are blind or visually impaired because most of us can't drive. Yes, we can use the bus or taxis, paratransit, trains, if we have them in our area, and we can ask family and friends. But another great choice is Uber or Lyft or any other ride-sharing services. Pablo, that's my husband, and I have used a lot of these different methods, but a lot of the time we like Uber. By the way, if you're new here, welcome to the channel. We make videos on tips like these, technology and encouragement for people who are blind, low vision, or their sighted supporters. Consider subscribing and hitting the bell to watch more videos like these. So it's really great to ask family and friends, but sometimes they can't do it all the time, and you don't want to take too much advantage, and sometimes you can't or don't want to wait. That's one reason Pablo and I use Uber a lot. It can get kind of expensive, but if you think about it, Pablo and I don't have to make car payments, we don't have to pay for insurance, we don't have to pay for gas, we don't have to pay for maintenance, and everything else that goes along with a car. So for us, it ends up being cheaper. And actually, we've been using Uber for more than 3 years now. And when we first heard about it, it was from good friends of ours who also is a blind couple. And when we first heard about it, we were like, get into a stranger's car? What? And we were a little bit uncomfortable with that idea. But now it's almost normal. I mean, people use ride-sharing services all the time, and whether they're blind or sighted. Over the years, we've learned a lot and we've had a lot of experience with Uber. So we wanted to share our 10 tips when using Uber, especially when you're blind or visually impaired. So tip number 1 is get comfortable with the app. This is probably a bit obvious, but especially if you're using TalkBack or VoiceOver, definitely explore the app, make sure that you know how to add addresses, add destinations, make sure you have all your payment methods in place, make sure you know how to contact the driver, things like that. You don't want to be stuck in a strange place and have problems with the app. At least problems that you can control just by learning and exploring it. And one thing that I do want to mention is the further away the driver is, the higher the fare will be. So if you have the opportunity to wait for that driver or a driver to be closer, and the fare should go down. So number 2 is make sure that you're getting into the right car with the right driver. This is so important for security. So what I usually do is make sure it's Uber first by just asking, are you Uber? And when they say yes, we ask, what's your name? Don't ask them, are you John or are you Matt or whatever their name is that's in the app. Ask them, what's your name? That way you're not volunteering that information and they have to give you that information just to make sure that you are going with the right person. Pablo and I have gotten on the wrong Uber because we just asked, oh, are you Uber? And we went in there and it ended up being that we were on the wrong Uber because somebody else had asked for Uber, and then we had to get out and we had to switch, and it was just complicated. It could also be that somebody who has bad intentions might just say, yes, I'm Uber, yes, I'm that person, and then take you to somewhere completely different. So definitely ask, what's your name? Number 3 is call and text ahead. Especially when I'm in an unfamiliar place, I call or text the driver who's coming and let them know that I'm blind or visually impaired and that I will not be able to find them or see them. A lot of the drivers will say, I'm here or I'm outside, and you might be in a parking lot and there's all these cars going back and forth, or people stopped at the curb waiting for their mom or grandma or whatever, and you don't know which one is Uber because you can't see the license plate number that Uber gives you. Most of the Uber drivers are really friendly, and some of them even get out of the car and guide you to their car. Make sure, of course, to help them to understand sighted guide, but that's another video topic, but most of them are very friendly. Also, if you have a guide dog or you have a lot of groceries or you have a full person car. So if you have an Uber X, that's 4, or if you have an Uber XL, that's 6 people. I call and text ahead and let them know that. And I mean, they're supposed to give you service. They're supposed to have enough space in their car, but sometimes they don't. And then they get there and then they either cancel on you or whatever, and it's just easier to text them and call them ahead instead of having to wait for another Uber. By the way, if they refuse you, definitely complain to Uber. Number 4 is use the color feature. If you know that it's a place that's difficult for certain drivers to find, or you just want to make sure that the driver will be able to see you, you can turn this on when the driver is close, and Uber tells you that the driver is close, and it will display a really bright color on your screen, which the driver will look for. And if you're using TalkBack or VoiceOver, make sure your screen curtain or your dim screen is off so that the screen is actually showing that color. It does show the driver's information on the bottom, so I like to hold my phone so that it's blocking the bottom quarter of the screen, so just for a little bit of added security. So this just makes it easier for the driver to find you. Number 5 is to ask for the ETA and navigate along with another app. So once you're actually in the car, ask the Uber driver how long will it be before you get to your destination. So certain drivers will take advantage because they think that you're blind and you don't know where you're going or where they're driving. So if you ask them a specific time, they will be less likely to do that. And if you're navigating along with something like Google Maps, you can make sure that they're going the right way. Just be mindful, sometimes there is traffic or accidents, and it's okay for the drivers to go around that. Number 6 is to share your trip and be familiar with emergency features. So if you're nervous about being on Uber, or a family member is, especially at night, you can share a trip with a friend or a family member, and so they can follow along your GPS location and see where you are on the trip. It's also good to know about the emergency features like contacting Uber and being able to call 911 on the Uber app, and just become familiar with how to navigate to those areas. It's also really important to know how to defend yourself. Pablo's always stressing that to me, and they have classes especially tailored for people that are blind or visually impaired. So that's something that you can look into. Number 7 is ask the Uber driver if they're willing to wait. So sometimes you just need to run in to get a coffee or to buy 1 or 2 groceries, pick up a prescription or something like that, and sometimes Uber drivers will be willing to wait, and it will be cheaper for you, and sometimes for them it's better because they're making money doing just sitting in the parking lot, and they're going to take you home or to another destination after that, so it can be profitable for them too. Just remember that they don't have to do this, and if you already know that you want to do this, you might want to call and text them even before they pick you up and see if they're willing to do that. I've done this a couple times before, sometimes when I had to get groceries or just pick up food, and some drivers are willing to do it and sometimes no, and it's really up to them. Number 8 is if you're comfortable with a specific driver, ask them if they have their own business. Certain Uber drivers have a personal transportation service that they do, and they hand out business cards to certain Uber customers, and sometimes it can be a lot cheaper. Just remember that if you do decide to do that, usually it's going to be with cash unless they have something like Square where you can run your card on their phone or something like that. This is especially useful when you have to go to an airport or if you have to go somewhere multiple times, like maybe to work or to class or something like that, and they can give you a much cheaper price. Number 9 is after your trip, check your bill and rate the driver. A lot of the time, people don't actually do this, and I think it's really important because sometimes there have been cases where drivers will claim that a rider did something when they didn't, and so Uber will charge a cleaning service or something like that, and later you wonder why you have a $200 bill. And so just check your bill, make sure that everything looks good. And if you have a really great driver, give them a 5-star. And if you have a really bad driver, make sure to give them a 1-star and give reasons, because this helps Uber to know which drivers are the good ones and which ones not so much. And number 10 is do not hesitate to contact Uber support. So this kind of goes hand in hand with the last one. Make sure if you have any problems, maybe the driver was inappropriate, or they weren't helpful, or they were discriminating, or something like that, make sure to contact Uber, because sometimes they'll give you a refund, or they'll give you credit, or they'll even kick that driver out of the Uber driver program. And they're really willing to speak to you, or at least that has been my experience. So sharing any bad experience just helps Uber to get better overall. So those are our 10 tips for using Uber or any other ride-sharing service. For the most part, Pablo and I have had a pretty good experience with Uber. There have been a few bad drivers. Just rate them accordingly and contact Uber. And also remember that these are independent contractors, so just because you had one bad driver doesn't mean that all of them are like that. I hope that these tips help, and if you have your own tips, make sure to share that in the comments below. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up below and subscribe and hit the bell for more videos on how you can live accessible. Thanks for watching, everyone, and I will see you in the next one.